Thank you very much for joining Energy Live News. There are some people saying that Britain should prepare for the worst recession in modern history, while others claim that coronavirus will hit economy worse than 2008. What is your opinion based on a recent survey, a very interesting and insightful survey that you published?
Well, there are two things. First of all, I haven't estimated what the fall in the economy will be. Others have, and their figures are very high. What I'm saying is that if the countermeasures that we take, and I understand entirely why we are going for lockdown, but if those countermeasures actually reduce our life expectancy by more than 3 months, then because there are so many of us in the country, that means that we will actually suffer more loss of life than we will from the epidemic itself. And then the next thing is that loss of life expectancy. How does that translate through to GDP per head? And that is something that we can do using the J value. We can make a good estimate of that. And we have developed a relationship, an objective relationship between the GDP per head and the amount of life expectancy you have as a nation.
Just trying to interpret what you have already said is that the economic crash followed by the coronavirus, you suggest that it would be worse and it would cost more life than the actual coronavirus.
That could happen, and that's a challenge for policymakers. We are facing a horrendous problem in front of us. There's no doubt about that, and the policymakers and the decision makers, they have a very difficult job ahead of them. What I'm saying is that if it actually leads to a recession that is significantly worse than we had in the financial crash of 2007-9, and that was very bad, and that was regarded as historic and very, very bad indeed, then we will actually lose more life than we will gain. And that's backed up not only by the J value analysis, which looks at life expectancy across all nations in the world, 180 out of 193 nations in the UN. That's also backed up by evidence from the Health Foundation, who've looked at the cut in life expectancy, the stalling of life expectancy that happened. Normally, everyone in the Western world is growing life expectancy, but the stalling of life expectancy that happened after the financial crash took a couple of years to kick in, but then it has been long-lasting.
With numbers now, I would like to ask you, what you're saying is that if the coronavirus lockdown leads to a fall in GDP of more than 6.4%, will cost life more, and life will be lost due to recession than will be gained from the coronavirus.
That's correct. That's correct. Because what happens is that countries spend a fraction of their income on promoting life-enhancing activities. And in the developed countries, that's a lot of that goes into health services. In the UK, it's the National Health Service, which is a big, which a large contribution is made. Also things like environment and environmental measures to protect the environment, and provision of public health measures, basic public health measures, such as provision of clean water and good sewage systems. So these are the things that ultimately will start to get affected.
What do you think about the energy sector, which is one of the main pillars of the economy? And what do you think about the environment?
Yes, well, if we look at energy, I mean, clearly there has been a fall in industrial output at the moment. There's a fall generally, and so there is less demand for energy, which in some ways is a good thing. But of course, that has a knock-on effect on the on those actually producing the energy to power industry and our homes. So for energy, yes, this is clearly going to be a knock-on effect, and that could be a very large effect. Coming to the environment is an interesting one, and it might be rather like human life. In the short term, people have been noticing, and this is absolutely right, that there's less pollution because people are only about a quarter as many people are driving around in cars, and lorries. A lot of industry has cut back, so there's less pollution on the roads, and that's nice. That's a good thing. There are fewer airplanes in the sky, so that's also a benefit to the atmosphere. However, in the longer term, then rather like what I was saying about the fall in life expectancy, we won't be able to afford to maintain all the environmental protection measures that we wish to put in place, and so that ultimately may be how that affects that sector.
And my final question, Professor, is do you think that the measures that they have already been announced and taken by the British government are in the right direction?
I think they are. We have to realize that these are temporary measures. I think that, I mean, what the British government is doing, as far as I can see, and it is fair to do this, is to try to buy time. It's buying time expensively, but it's trying to buy time so that we can bring in better hospital services, better stocked hospitals, more beds, field hospitals, and so on. But that's one thing, and that at some stage we need to lift the restrictions because we can't go on like this forever. Or there is the best solution of all, which is to bring in a vaccination, a vaccine, and followed by mass immunization. And it would have to be mass. We're talking about something of almost 40 million people would need to be vaccinated in order to give us herd immunity. Those are things the government is doing. The challenge, as I see it, for the government is how to get us back to work. And I would like to see a lot of effort now paid to measures for studying considering how we can get back to work safely.
Professor, thank you very much for your time. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.